Hey, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining the latest episode of Flockjay's webinar series. I'm your host, Chris Cater, the Manager of Customer Success at Flockjay, and today we have the honor of speaking with Steffaney Zohrabyan, who is the Sales Enablement Insights and Innovation leader at Cisco. And welcome, Steffaney. We're super pumped to have you.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. So one of the first questions that we like to know inside of this series is you kind of letting us know, how did you get into sales enablement?
I was doing a lot of just training for different companies. And at the time, I was working for a big recruiting firm as they were transitioning into Salesforce. And it kind of led into more roles where it's like, oh, someone actually doesn't mind doing Salesforce enablement and making sure people are successful in this tool that everybody hates. And I thought, and it kind of led to different roles along the way. So I was working at T-Mobile for Business when we merged with Sprint, which was a really big deal back in 2020 as we were all in lockdown with COVID. And I just kind of took on these roles, and I took on the jobs that kind of nobody wanted in enablement. They thought, okay, hold on, you like to teach people technology, you like to create walkthroughs and videos and workflows. And I thought, yeah, I don't know why, it sounded fun to me. And that kind of led to culminating in this role I have here at Cisco, where we're supporting 16,000 sellers as they're going from being hardware salespeople and going through those motions to becoming sellers who sell with a recurring revenue way. And they do sell hardware, but they also sell services and software. So it's a really big transition. Cisco's going through a big change right now, and it's just really fun to be a part of, to see, okay, now what does nobody want to do? I can take that on and I can make it fun.
That's awesome, and I love how you mentioned how you are using different skills and to help the team be better. You know, you're helping them use those tools and maybe not hate it so much because they know how to use it now.
Yeah, whenever I talk to some caring quota, whether an account manager, renewals, or things like that, they always feel just personally victimized by the amount of technology we push at them and say, no, this is going to help, and they're like, no, I'm not touching it. I don't want another tool. Please don't make me go. And this tech stack is growing from, 10 to 15 to 20 to 25 platforms. I think I counted at Cisco, they touch almost 30 platforms on a daily basis. They're supposed to go to basically just do their job. In addition to all the soft skills and all of the people skills that they need to be able to grow their accounts and create relationships with their customers. So it's a lot. And what I keep hearing from everyone is being a seller is just too hard. So my goal is just to make it just a little bit easier as they navigate their tech stack.
Yeah. Well, shout out to you for helping them on that side feel more confident in those 30 tools that they're using, because they're already focused on the selling part, and now you get to help them be more confident on the tools part. So shout out to you for supporting them in that. So
Thanks.
the next question that we have is that I noticed that your title, Sales Enablement and Insights Innovation. Could you kind of let us know what does that mean? I hadn't seen that title before that really dives in on insight and innovation.
That's what got me excited to join Cisco. I was kind of found in a Slack channel. I was transitioning between roles, and my current senior director found me in a sales enablement Slack channel. And he was basically growing a team here at Cisco within global sales enablement to really be data first and to incorporate, go from traditional enablement, which is very heavily traditional training based, webinar based, workshop based, and to take that into more of this 70-20-10 model, which is only 10% of enablement should be these formal learning experiences. 20% needs to be more tribal knowledge coaching and learning from each other, and upskilling that way. And 70% of upskilling and enablement should be taking place as the seller is in their workflow. So everyone kind of pointed to me in the Slack channel as somebody who knows how to put enablement content within the flow of work. And I was very flattered and I'm really happy to be where I am right now. But it's just this matter of looking at the data. Where are our sellers spending their most time, and what platform? What do those workflows look like? And how can we put content kind of along the way, these little breadcrumbs, Breadcrumbs is an interesting way of putting it, but basically putting these breadcrumbs or these cue cards along the way to make sure that they understand where they are. They know what they're looking at within their technology. They know what to do, and they can get out of there as fast as they can to go do something else that will help them get closer to increasing revenue or maximizing the size of their deals. So it's hard work to understand all these workflows for sellers all over the world who sell lots of different things, who have lots of different specialties, but it's kind of that data first mindset of, what do we know about these sellers? What are they telling us? And what can we view about their behavior based on what we see in the technology?
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I find it very interesting and cool that you were found using a very popular tech tool and now
Yeah.
training on tech tools. So,
Oh, and
nice.
I'm at Cisco, so we should say should call it a WebEx channel. It was just a Slack channel, but
Yeah.
that's okay. I'm Team WebEx now, but yeah, it's really interesting the fact that I was found because I was increasing my knowledge in sales enablement through the 20%. I
Yeah.
wasn't so much attending conferences or attending webinars, but we were sending messages through a channel to learn from each other, and I think that kind of speaks to how sellers like to learn as well. They like
Yeah.
to find out who's doing the coolest thing, and they like to, get 30 minutes on their calendar to see if they can do it too. We really want to encourage that through our collaboration tools, and we want to do that with our customers as well. So it's really just a really big shift in how we gather that knowledge of what sellers know and how they can share it with each other.
I love that point that you made about finding out who's doing the cool thing and putting time on their calendar. So with that second part, putting the time on their calendar, what about that first part? How do you see sellers finding out who's doing the cool thing? Like, how do they know?
What I found about salespeople is that they're not shy to toot their own horn. When people close the biggest deals in Cisco history, or when people are actually able to sell or position this new technology they've been wanting to bring to market, I found that it's pretty easy to find that person, which is great. And I'm the same way. I love to, like, I will throw myself a party just for me, with a milkshake and everything. But what I found is that when we do go to that person, we want to make sure that story gets maximum exposure. And that is even a part of putting content within the flow of work. So if somebody's looking at how to position a new product or bundle services with software and hardware, how did Jim do it? How did Jim close this giant deal last quarter? And that gives that element of social proof, right as they're looking at that, right as they're in that moment in the flow of work, to say, hey, Jim did it. I think I can do it too. How about I use Jim's playbook? So it's just this combination of just incorporating tribal knowledge into the flow of work and just really accelerating seller performance.
Yeah, I love that. I think a common phrase people say, not to reinvent the wheel. If we know something is working, we go down the path that we know is working. Uh, So that's awesome to know that's something that you all have been utilizing it and going into as well. Uh, One of the other questions I had, it was cool to me when you were mentioning the 70-20-90. Are there any other benefits that you saw in that kind of 70% of the training being the learning by doing? Like, is there a difference that you've personally seen in your experience as to why that is so much more beneficial than the other 30% of it?
What I think about the 70 is that because it's taking place in technology and because we use platforms, I use a digital adoption platform to basically follow this seller through this process. It's almost like a sales funnel, if you will, to see where they're taking action in their accounts, where they're getting through and making it to that, closed one deal. And so I think the benefits of that is to say, it's kind of like those little nudges. It's like, okay, you've made it to a stage 3. Here's everything you can do to get it to a stage 4. And we can see the success of our enablement programs by saying, did they review our enablement content and did they take action? So I think the current state of a lot of enablement programs is, oh, how many people did we get in that training? Or how many people saw this email? How many sellers actually looked at what we gave them? But with this enabling within the flow of work, we're actually able to track to see if action's been taken. So I can go into any room and say, look, we moved the needle on seller behavior and performance and revenue earned by this much by providing this content at this time for the seller. And I don't know that a lot of enablement programs can do that. I don't have it down to a science yet. It's a lot of failing fast and failing often as we're learning what resonates with sellers and what provides maximum value. But it still, I believe, has a much stronger data story than trying to get, you know, um, sellers to give a review of your training or trying to get sellers to say, yes, I liked this, or yes, I didn't, or I didn't even go. So it's just that's a real big difference in that 70-20-10 and putting that emphasis on the 70.
And thank you so much for breaking that down and explaining that part. The last question I have about the 70 that I can think of right now is when you are getting those insights from the team when it comes to what they're doing right now. How is Cisco right now kind of saving those insights so that not only can the people at the team right now know about it, but the teammates in the future, when they join, they can say, "Oh yeah, that big deal that closed 6 months ago. I want to learn from that one too." How are they able to learn from some of those past lessons?
I think it's a lot of having this closed loop of feedback with the field. So when they do engage with something, when they do ignore something, letting them know that we've heard them. So one thing that I did a couple months ago was we were talking about supply chain. And it's hard when you're selling hardware to have the right supply chain when, you know, wars are happening around the world and a big supplier shut down due to COVID. So what we wanted to hear from the sellers is, okay, here's all the content and here's all the resources we have to communicate with the customer, the supply chain, um, the new supply chain updates. Here's what everything you could need. Do you feel comfortable reaching out to the customer with this information? And we gathered, an angry face to a happy face, just something very simple, because it was one of the first things I did here at Cisco. I'm like, okay, happy face to angry face. And we took that feedback. They were also able to give kind of a free form of feedback, which was brutally honest. Nobody held back in terms of how they felt about the current status of things. But what we did is next quarter, we looked at that as a team. Especially as in the communications org, we looked and saw that they needed things in different languages. They needed things that talked about more competitive intelligence around what the competitors were doing with supply chain. And the next quarter, we were able to provide that in the flow of work as they were creating deals and orders. And what we saw is that that angry face to happy face changed quite drastically. The angry faces went down by 28%. The happy faces went up by a huge percentage. And so looking at that, we're saying, okay, here's what you told us. And now here's what we did. And because of that, we're starting to become this trusted source of value. Say, you know what, whenever I see that little button on the screen, I know that that's a good thing. I know if I click on it, it'll have something valuable for me. And in enablement, that's really kind of a hard thing. We're in enablement, we're either ripping them off the field to put them in a training or taking away some of their time that they could be spent in calls or research. So to know that all they have to do and everything they need is a click away is a huge thing for enablement.
Oh, I love that for you all. That you all are kind of, to your point, making it to where the team sees the true value in that learning, development, the practice, because that makes you better. But to your point, sometimes people are like, I just want to do. I don't want to practice. But
Mm-hmm.
I love it that you all are able to gain that, and the way that you were able to do it is by asking the question, and that's how you know what you all could have improved on. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you
It's
sharing
hard
that.
to get feedback. It's hard to look through those responses and think, man, we could really do better. But the fact that you do come back and you do better, the field sees that. They notice that and they think, okay, you can stay.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. The next kind of transition we'll make here is with our next question, where right now we are seeing there's companies who are letting people go or slowing down hiring, or some of them they're just really putting a big focus on trying to get more production out of their existing reps. Uh, we would like to know from you, what can enablement practitioners do in times like this to increase revenue and kind of get more from their current team?
It's a really hard time right now. I know I have a really strong pulse on the current state of not just enablement, but of everybody's sales teams. And I know there's lots of restructuring going on all over the world. And in companies that are, the new hot tech companies are even feeling it. And so what I think is, how did we do things before? What got us to this point isn't going to get us to that next level. I know that's the cheesiest, like, I think Tony Robbins said that. I apologize, everybody, but it is really true in the fact that we can't keep doing what we've been doing. And it's so hard to take people out of their comfort zone. It's hard to take sellers out of their comfort zone. And what I found is it's even harder to take these enablement professionals out of their comfort zone. I have individuals who have been working here at Cisco for over 20 years and who have seen it all and have lots of stories to share. But it's a matter of saying, okay, we've been doing this for a long time. This is the cost associated with that traditional training, going around and doing road shows and setting up these huge, enormous events for 4 days. Do you see an ROI from that? Do you feel like the field has changed what they've done based on these big, expensive events? And a lot of times it's hard to find that correlation between what we've done in the past and a strong ROI. So looking at your enablement programs, could you do anything else besides a big expensive event? Like, is there anything else we can do to get that content to the field? I've seen, very important messages just go to die in inboxes. So how can we get this information into the eyes of more sellers to get them to take action? And I think when you start to look at that, you start to be able to do so much more with less. You start to think, okay, we have all these incredible enablement professionals, instructional designers. We have this great relationship with the field. What if we invested more effort into, putting that content in the flow of work? Or what if we invested that more into a mentorship program or a coaching program? I'm part of the group Pavilion. And one thing that I love every single month is I'm paired with a different sales professional through this lunch roulette program. I like that visual. I'm sure they're not actually spinning a wheel and matching me with somebody, but every month I get to learn from somebody else. And one program that is especially valuable and takes very minimal time to organize is the concept of that kind of roulette. I know at lots of companies you have brand new sellers who are really good at technology, who are basically tech natives and who can navigate a tech stack no problem. You have sellers who are a bit more tenured, who have these amazing people skills and who know selling motions but are struggling with the tech. So don't you think that they could learn from each other? It's this idea of this sort of bilateral mentorship that could possibly be done. And those one-on-one conversations, I firmly believe, are so much more valuable than a 4-hour training or a 4-hour webinar where that learning curve just drops off after 1 to 2 days. And then they have contacts for life that they can reach out to, or not for life, but then they have contacts that they can reach out to throughout the next quarter as they struggle with, building relationships or using the technology. So I think it's just kind of looking at what you have and looking at the talent you currently have and maximizing that to the nth degree.
Oh, that is all great, and I know the enablement leaders and potential enablement leaders who listen to this are going to get a lot of insight from that, because it's kind of a similar strategy to what we were talking about with the sellers. They should take the opportunity to take a step back off the field so that they can get better. And that sounds like the same thing that you did as an enablement leader. Instead of just doing the same thing you've always done, you're able to kind of take a step back and say, okay, what do I have? Where do I want to go? And what can we do to get there? And and I agree with you. The visual of the roulette does kind of make it cool
That,
too. So
yeah. I think like I can hear the sound. Sorry, I'm like throwing crabs. That's not roulette, but I can imagine.
yeah. Well, I got a follow up question to that. When you were speaking about the pairing people up to where their strengths can lean into each other, and when strengths can help a weakness, what's one of the ways that you let someone know who's like a high performer? What's one of the benefits that you share with them that they get out of sharing with others, right? Because like they could just keep that knowledge to themselves and just continue being a high performer, but how do you encourage them to share and help others get better?
That's a good question. And I think information and that sort of push to get their involvement shouldn't come from enablement. That should come from their manager or their director. Whoever they report into should say, hey, people could learn a lot from you. Let's put you on this pedestal as a mentor this quarter. Or let's make you a coach. I see my own director doing this to me a lot. He's like, we want to give you the microphone because we want, other people to learn from you as well as you learning from other people. And I think even just playing into the hubris of individuals at that level is to say we want to give you the microphone. I think that is really great, but it has to come from that people manager. So in enablement, if you're going to launch something like that, and this is something that I haven't done yet in my current role, but it's on my bingo card. I really want to do it, but have that relationship with those people managers to find those mentors and have them start to create that sort of tribal learning and that mentorship program here at Cisco.
Yes, yeah, that
One day.
relationship. One day it is
Yep.
that the relationship with the enablement team and the people managers, you're right, could be extremely beneficial for the reps. When you have someone who's looking out for your career on one side with the people managers, and then the other with looking out to make sure that you're successful in the role. And that's kind of like a common goal between them both. So with you all sharing that goal, you're right, that could make a great partnership. So one of the other questions that we have is what advice would you have for people who are looking to break into work in the enablement uh, part of their company or at any company? How can they get into enablement?
I think just being extra curious and asking questions, why do we do things this way at the company? Why just always going into that question, like finding that so what, like, so what about this program? And not in a jerky way, like not in a mean way, but just always being curious and looking at what's happening and what you're doing at the company. I feel like people this time last year, I was interviewing lots of different companies, lots of different, very, very incredible companies that I would have been very lucky to work at any of them. And I'm happy I landed at Cisco, but they were really great. And all of them asked me, like, how can you show that your enablement programs contribute to company growth? And honestly, I don't know many people that can answer that. Be like, oh, we trained this amount of people. That's the answer. But if you can go a little bit more niche in your enablement journey as an enablement professional, if you can get that one great skill that you can track to company growth, whether that's enabling coaching programs, mentorship programs, or putting content within the flow of work for sellers, I think that that's something that a lot of people are starting to lean into. And a lot of companies are starting to say, okay, we can't keep doing things the same way. How about we start bringing in people who are willing to do something different? So that would be my big advice to enablement professionals looking to either take that next step, or even instructional designers or quota carrying sellers who want to get into enablement.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and thank you for sharing that. I know that they'll find benefit and insight into that information. Taking it to the next level, once they get started, what challenges do you see they may have once they land that enablement position? What challenges may do you think they may get at the beginning, and what ways do you see them being able to overcome those challenges?
Definitely being visible in the company and letting people know what enablement does and how enablement can help them. Again, people think about enablement so new, and most people think, oh, enablement's training, right? So I'm going to come to you for, our new hire onboarding, or maybe our manager program or our sales associate program. But thinking about enablement is kind of this consistent value add to the company. And you're consistently providing resources to take new products to market. You're consistently providing resources to ease that seller journey and ease the seller's workflow to be able to make our customers' lives better. I was just at our big Cisco kickoff, and it was huge. It was in Vegas, and Pink was there. It was incredible.
Nice.
But the one thing that sticks out is when our CEO said that we make at Cisco, the products we sell make our customers' lives easier, so it makes their customers' lives better. And that direction at looking at, okay, my customer is, of course, our customers, but who's their biggest customer? How is what we're selling making their lives better? And I think about, as sales enablement professionals, we have our customer, which is, of course, our salespeople, and getting them to buy into our product and use our technology and make sure that they're being successful. But how can we make their lives easier to make their customers better? So just ensuring that they're enabled with everything to position solutions and services to make to make the customer's journey more successful. Everything from that to just making sure these sellers know how to chat with C-levels, everything from those sides of the spectrum is so important. So making sure that you really look at that. The sellers are your customers, but your real customers are your company's customers, and have that in mind with every enablement program.
Oh, Stephanie, that was like extremely meta in the B2B world, because you're helping your customer's customer be better for their customer so they can
It
serve
is. It's like I feel like it's this circle of life. It's like I feel like everything really is connected in the fact that if they're not selling and packaging things correctly, and they're trying to get to their quota by skimping on services, or then that seller's or that customer is going to churn,
Yeah.
and that customer is not going to be successful, and you're going to end up with maybe less customers than you had last year. So it's just, again, yeah, super meta.
Yeah. And I think the benefit of knowing that as an enablement leader, being able to share that with your customer because you know it, I think it could help them a lot too. So that's awesome. I do want to touch on we talked. You gave some insight into how people can break into the enablement industry and how they can be successful, what challenges they could overcome. But going back to talking about, you said you're kind of like first year in enablement and coming into it. What changes have you seen in this past year when it comes to the enablement world, or when it comes to the lessons that you've been learning over this past year? What are some of the big things that you've learned?
I think it's just being data first. I feel like I tackle these programs, I get so excited, and I think that my excitement is just going to automatically get all this buy-in. And I know that doesn't work for our sellers. You could have the most charismatic gentleman or woman on the planet, but someone's going to have questions about the impact this is going to make. So I think it kind of goes back to that concept of being data first, being data driven. And before you do anything, say, okay, I want to track the data on the current state of things and see in 6 months, 1 year, how our enablement programs have changed that current state for the better. And because a lot of people don't do that, they just launch initiatives and think, oh, we had a good year, good quarter. It's because of enablement, they're not able to track that successfully. And so I keep getting little pings here and there from my leaders to say, okay, you're getting current stats, right? You're getting
Yeah.
what sellers are currently doing so that we can track how you're improving that number, right? And I'm like, yeah, let me go do that. It's really so hard, and I feel like I don't know if this is a thing. I feel like I'm number dyslexic, where I'm not someone who just like leans towards data naturally. It's a little hard for me, and I feel like everyone can tell I get a little uncomfortable as I'm fumbling around. But if you can close that knowledge gap as an enablement professional, it's really such a tour de force to be able to make such a big impact at your organization. So do that.
Oh
There's
yeah.
this phrase I heard. It was, if you want facts, look at data. And if you want to go off of opinions, let's use mine. Because if you're not using data and you're not looking at facts, then you might as well just be using anybody's opinion. And it doesn't get you very far, unfortunately. And that definitely doesn't garner lots of buy-in.
Yeah. So everyone, you heard it from Stephanie. Use the data. All right, that data first. So
As painful as it is.
yeah. All right. And so the final question that we have here is kind of focusing on the uh, kind of series title that we have about the lessons that you've learned and the lessons that the sellers learned. And it's what do you see is the best way to capture all of this and deliver it to the seller? So that I know earlier we talked about the lessons that as someone's selling, they make a big play and they share, hey, that was me. We're throwing each other parties, and that's amazing. And one of the things that we want to really focus on right now is then how do we lock in that information and save that lesson and be able to deliver it for everyone in the future?
I think be specific. I see so many enablement programs that are so vague. Step one, do industry research. what does that mean? I feel like I do industry research, but do I how am I supposed to do this as a seller at this company? Do I go on Twitter? Like, who do I talk to about, like, do I need to find like someone at Gartner to tell me what's going on in the industry? I think you need to be specific. You need to let the seller know, like, this is where you go and do that, and to be very action based. Say, go to Sales Navigator, see who's recently joined your company, see if there's new people in the C level, see if they've opened up into a new category, or they've opened up, or they're trying to, sell to the medical services industry. What's happening at your company. That's industry research. What are their customers saying about them? Again, we go to, making our customers better for their customers, but are their customers happy? And really going deeper and wider into those accounts. This is just one example, but you have to be specific in how to do that. And of course, it's different for everyone. But this also goes back to that concept of, how do we do, what does good look like? And what is the top seller doing to go deeper into their accounts? How did they create this relationship? So maybe it's not for you as enablement professionals to invent this, but maybe it's for you to go do some research of your own and find out what these top sellers are doing to create these incredible relationships and understand their customers' industry. So not just, take things from a book or do what the tool you bought says that you should do, but see what people are finding success with at your company, and making sure that you're specific as possible in how to go and actually do and execute on what you're asking them to do.
There we go. Well,
Again, it's harder to do that. It's harder to do that than to put a little line in a training, industry research. Oh, check. They took a test. They know that they're supposed to do industry research. They answered question number 3. It's
right.
harder to do that. But again, you're able to track that moving that needle if you're able to say that our sellers went and did industry research this way. Our
Right.
sellers looked at these elements of industry research. So
That's right.
I could talk all day about that.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that knowledge with us. From talking about how we're able to gather that knowledge, to how we would train the team on it, to the making sure that they know the importance of what their customer wants to do. I know all of that knowledge is super helpful for everyone who would be listening. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining and for sharing your insight and experience with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.
Oh, and thank you. I had a lot of fun too, and we appreciate it, Stephanie. And thank you.
Thank you.